see everybody here. Yes, everybody. It's a little hot. Yes. Well, good morning. I'm glad everybody's here today. It's another great Sunday. Amen. Amen. Well, this morning, like I said, we've been able to have a couple different people speaking for Sunday school, but this morning we have a special guest speaking with us. He'll be speaking in the Sunday school and then in the main service, and he's one of our missionaries to Nicaragua. He's been our missionary for 7+ years. His name's Max Kennedy, and so I'm going to have him come on up, and he's got Sunday school, and then he'll give his update for Sunday school, and then you'll be able to hear him preach for main service.
Well, hello, everyone. Am I on here? Yeah, I'm on. Good to see y'all. Thanks for having me back. It's been a while. Can I set this right here? All right. I hadn't had coffee yet this morning, so if I fall asleep during my own talk, you know why. Hey, so I'm Max Kennedy. My wife is Jennifer. She's that beautiful lady in the picture with me. Yeah, well, that one too. And she and I were here, I think, in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. And so we wanted to come back and give you a report of all the things God has done. See, whenever we came the last time, we were on what's called deputation, right? And that's where missionaries go around and they have a vision in their mind of and in their heart of what God's called them to do, hoping that it will all come true one day. And now we're on this side of it where we've actually been to Nicaragua because of your help and your support. We got there, and God has tremendously blessed, more than we could have ever imagined. And that's what this time with you is about. I want to share all of the praises and all of the wonderful things, because even though, I don't know, has anyone here ever been to Nicaragua? Raise your hand. You have? Awesome. Joe's been to Nicaragua. That's cool. Well, all of you have left your spiritual fingerprints there in Nicaragua because of your partnership with us. The cooperation that missions affords us is amazing, because here's the truth. Listen close. Jennifer and I could not do what God's called us to do without you. Seriously, without your church's financial and prayer support, we couldn't do it. But here's the other side of that coin that I think a lot of people forget. Your church could not complete the Great Commission without Jennifer and I. And so what a great cooperation, right? Because we feel like we're your representatives in Nicaragua because of your financial support, because of your prayers. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to brag on the men's group and your pastor specifically. Pastor Jim and I go way back. We knew each other way back in BBC, and we're good friends. But I get almost weekly an email text from him with you guys holding your coins up, praying for us. And you're the only church that does that. The only church that I receive regular communication from that you have prayed for me today. So you're special. You really are. So let me share what happened. When we left you guys, we went to Costa Rica to language school. So we were approved as BBFI missionaries in May of 2014. So officially we have been missionaries for 8 years, almost. In May it'll be 8 years with the BBFI. But, we didn't move directly to Esteli. We had to get some language school and deputation done. So we went to language school in Costa Rica, and we lived there for 1 year. Jennifer and I went to school every day, or 5 days a week, 5 hours a day, to learn Spanish. And when we left language school, we spoke Spanish perfectly. No, that's not true. It doesn't happen that way. What the language school did is give us a wonderful base, and we were able to communicate enough to continue to learn. Well, we moved directly from language school. I actually drove all of our stuff across the border into Nicaragua immediately, and we moved in 2000, it says right here, 2017 in August. We moved to Esteli, Nicaragua, which is in the north part of the country. If you look at a map of Central America, you've got North America, right? And then Mexico's part of North America. And then you get out of Mexico, you get into Central America. And then you get out of Central America, you get into South America. So we're in Central America, and we're in the center of Central America. Nicaragua is the largest country in Central America, and Esteli is the third largest city in Nicaragua, and it's in the north. Now, Managua is the capital, and Managua is 1.7 million people. The whole country is about 7 million. Esteli, we have over between 250 to 300,000 people that live in the Esteli area. So Esteli, being 3 hours north of Nicaragua and being the third largest town in Nicaragua, became it's kind of the capital of the north. A lot of people see it that way. A lot of business. We have 19 universities. A lot of students come there every weekend to study and during the week study. So it's a happening place. Well, we moved right into the heart of downtown and began our ministry almost immediately. As a matter of fact, we immediately began planting a church. Now, when I say that, we took a couple of months to furnish our home. We had to find a home and rent a home. Then we had to furnish it. We didn't send a container. We didn't bring our own stuff. We had a few things from Costa Rica, like, pillows, clothes, towels. I had a little TV, stuff like that, a fan. Brought that across. But when we rented the home, we had to buy couches and all that because the apartment that we rented in Costa Rica was furnished. So anyway, we took 2 months to kind of settle in. As you can imagine, in a new language, a new culture, not knowing where anything is, I think 2 months was very, very, very fast. And then, so August, September, October, and November is when we started the plant process. I'll go ahead and show that next picture. We rented a little house next door to our house that was available. It was very inexpensive rent, and that's where we really began that church. Now, what did we do? How do you start a church? That's a great question. I had been a pastor. See, my story, I don't know if you know, but I was a pastor in the state of Texas for 23 years. I was 23 when God called me to Lubbock, Texas, to Lubbock Baptist Temple, right out of BBC. I graduated BBC, and we moved right to Lubbock, and I began pastoring. Pastored there for 5 years. Then moved to the Dallas area, was there 18 years. So God called me into missions at the age of 46. And so I thought, man, this is weird. I thought I'd be a pastor the rest of my life, but God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And so we decided to move in that direction. And I resigned my church, and December 29th, 2013 was the last Sunday that I preached as pastor of Park Lake Baptist Church in Saxe, Texas, which is in the Dallas area. Well, I'm kind of going back to kind of get you caught up to where we are. So we moved then to Esteli and had just fresh come out of language school. Didn't speak really great Spanish, but we started meeting people, and the calle, the street, became my classroom. And so there I began just learning more and more, Jennifer too. And we started inviting our friends and neighbors that we were making in those 2 months that we were buying things around town. We were meeting people, telling them who we are. And we're kind of stand out there. We're some of the only gringos that live in that area. So, when we moved in to our house, I'm sure the people said, oh, there goes the neighborhood, there's the gringos. Because we really do, we stand out. But anyway, so we started inviting people to what we called a meeting for interested people. In Spanish, reuniones para personas interesadas, meetings for interested people. And they'd say, interested in what? I said, well, in starting a church. And then they'd kind of turn their head, when you see a dog hear that weird sound and they do like that, people would kind of go like, what are you talking? I say, we're going to have coffee and cookies. Okay, I'll be there. So our very first meeting for interested people, we had 25 show up at our house. And we began talking about what our purpose was, what God had called us to do, that we wanted to plant a new church and make history together in Esteli. Well, the excitement built, and the next time we had that meeting, we had about 36 people show up. Well, this is November, remember? So December was coming, and we said, let's do this. With the people we've met, you guys have come to our house now. Why don't we do a Christmas party? And you invite all of your friends and your family and people that might be interested too. And we'll do it as kind of a Christmas party. You guys, make the food, and we'll just have a good old time. And I'll tell everybody what we're here to do and give a little devotion. And they said, okay. Well, 83 people showed up at our house that night. And here, the church hadn't started yet. These are just people interested in possibly helping us form a launch team to build the church. Well, at that meeting with 83 people in my home, we did all the food stuff, all the fun stuff, but then I gave a very short Christmas devotion, and in that, at the end, I felt led to have an invitation, and 14 people accepted Jesus Christ. And that's when I knew God was in this thing and that he really wanted that church there. And so all this time, you guys, every month, sending your faithful support, praying for us, sending me the text messages that you're praying for me, you were a part of all of that. And so we launched finally our church in 2019 officially. We'd been meeting, but we didn't officially launch until January 2019 in downtown. Let's show them the next picture here. You can see during that year we had our first baptisms. That's me baptizing the first three converts, first three disciples that we discipled, and that's in a waterfall or at a waterfall called Salto Estanzuela. That's about 5 miles from my house. If you ever come visit me, we'll go look at it. These are some activities down here. This bottom frame. No, go back. This bottom frame right here, you can see that's a friend day, our very first friend day, and we had to rent another building because that little house that we were in was just too tiny, and I don't know, there was 150 people or so that came to that. That top left hand, that's our first anniversary service, and that's the people pictured there are just the real faithful helpers and workers of our church, kind of our core church family at that point, just after a year. So God was blessing. We were seeing souls saved. We were seeing people get baptized. We started discipleship. Now you can throw that next picture up there. And this is a discipleship class. Now, if you'll notice, there's only one female in the picture. Can you spot her? It's my wife all the way in the back. And these young men, 15 to 25, was the majority of our church the first year. We were reaching 15 to 25-year-old young men. We had no ladies. We really didn't have many children. But for some reason, these guys kind of liked me. And I would get out and I would do everything I could to kind of learn from them, and talk to them. And I figured it out. I finally figured it out. See, when God called me at the age of 46, I questioned him and said, why didn't you call me at 26? Being a missionary in another culture, learning a new language, that's all a lot easier when you're younger. You have the energy, your mind is still developing, and now I understand, because especially for these young men and many others now that we've reached, is that in Nicaragua, people really respect older people. As a matter of fact, if you go to the grocery store or you're to the bank, or to anything like that, a government office, they have a special line for people over 60. And if they don't, if someone over 60 walks in, and you could have been in line for 3 hours at the bank, it doesn't matter, they get to go first. It's just their idea. And so I'm not 60, I'm 54, but I don't get to stand in that line yet, although I look 84. Anyway, I might get away with it. But these young men, too, another thing about Nicaragua is, unfortunately, fathers are kind of absentee fathers. They may be in the home, but they work, and that's their mentality. I'll work, make money. The woman takes care of the children. And as a result, the fathers don't really express their love a whole lot or say that they're proud of their children or their young men, your young boys much. And so when as the age that I am, they view me as a father figure, I put my hand on their shoulder and I look them in the eye and I say, I'm proud of you. It just attaches them to me. And so that's why we reached a lot of young men and still do. Still the core of our ministry team, our band, a lot of our leaders are in that age group of 15 to 25. And we're really grateful that God allows us to minister to them. But they're in a discipleship class, that picture you see right now. They're in a discipleship class and they went through it. They all accepted Christ. And now they're going through step by step how to become a mature believer or grow in their faith. Let's look at the next picture. Then we begin really reaching kids. Just like I attract those young, youth age guys, Jennifer attracts the children. And so she got out and began working and getting kids to come, and I would go pick some up in our truck. I've had as many as 35 kids in the back of a truck on the way to church. There's no law against it. You pack them in as much as you can and just hope they don't fall out, right? And so this is the very first Kids' Day celebration. See, in Nicaragua, they do have Mother's Day and they do have Father's Day, but they also have Children's Day. I think that's a pretty good idea. And so it's the day after Mother's Day, so it kind of makes sense too. So we have a Mother's Day Sunday, and then the following Sunday we always do Children's Celebration. And this is the very first one, and we had a lot of kids come. We did the piñata, we did the cake, and started seeing these kids start coming. Now, some of these kids, that's 3 years ago. I can look at most of those faces, and they still come to our church, and they've all gotten a lot bigger in 3 years. But anyway, I love that picture. Let's go to the next one, and we'll see. I put this picture in here. Now, it's what this young man and everyone else is eating that you see on the plate there is called gallo pinto, and that is the national food of Nicaragua. It's just rice and beans mixed together with a little bit of a bell pepper and onion, a little bit of seasoning, and it is really delicious. I'd love to eat it. It's a breakfast food mainly, and it has all the carbs and a little bit of protein to kind of fill their bellies and get them through the day. But Nicaragua is the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. 80% of Nicaraguans live on less than $2 per day. 68%, almost 7 out of 10, live on less than $1 per day. So food is hard to come by, especially for children. I'll give you an example. We have 14 churches that are planted all around the country. We work with other missionaries in a thing called Familia Avance, a non-governmental organization. And out in El Rama, one of our little pastor's wives, she was out visiting one day for a children's campaign. And she came across an 8 and a 5-year-old, 8-year-old girl and her 5-year-old brother. And there in Nicaragua, like I said, food's hard to come by, and you can see real hunger. We see it in our church every Sunday. Kids come to church and they're very lethargic, and we have to feed them something before they can even pay attention. But she was visiting. She saw this 8 and 5-year-old, and she saw and noticed that they looked very hungry, and she asked the little girl, "What have you guys had to eat today?" And the little girl with no emotion looked at her and said, "It's not my turn to eat today. It's my brother's turn. I'll eat tomorrow." And that's not uncommon in Nicaragua. Think about it. 68% live on less than $1 per day. I've witnessed it myself, dads eating in their front yard. You know, the front yard is kind of part of their house, and so when you're walking by, you see things, and he'll be eating, and he'll eat 4 or 5 bites, and the little toddler will come up, and he'll feed them a little bite. And that's what they eat. So we've made it a point. All of our church services, all of our activities, every single one, we feed people. And so we have individuals who support our feeding ministry. We have churches who support a feeding ministry. And as we plant more churches, we'll need more of that because we buy food, we make it ready, and we feed kids and adults and anyone who comes to our church. Even you, if you come and visit us, you'll get a plate of something to eat for our church service. So I just thought I'd throw that in there to kind of give you an idea of the type of ministry that we have. It is many times to reach someone's soul, you have to prove that you love their body, or you love them. And so that's what we do. It's a compassion ministry. So we don't have feeding centers where we feed children every day. Maybe that's in the future, but what we do is make sure every time we have an activity, every time we meet, we feed. All right, let's go on to the next picture. This is just kind of a collage of things that have happened over the last 3 years, because January 23rd of this year, we celebrated our 3rd year anniversary, Santuario Familiar Bautista Esteli. We're in the middle of Esteli, and this is our church that we planted 3 years ago, and we celebrated with a big celebration service, and it was a lot of fun. Had a lot of people come, but you can just see various pictures of different, like that's the 2nd anniversary there by the Santuario on the left. You can see when we were in the little house. We even rented a theater one time. You can see down here at the bottom, a big theater that was abandoned. We've got it ready to go, and we started having services there. And then now this bottom left-hand picture here, that is our new property that we finally just bought this past August. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Let's go to the next picture. So, Santuario Esteli, our first church plant, just celebrated its 3rd anniversary this year. We finally purchased a property for this church. This was amazing. God blessed. We started raising money and trying to talk to our supporters and churches, and many donated. And we were finally able, on August of this past year, to purchase a property right in downtown Esteli. It's not giant, but it is about, I'll put it in feet, it's about 36 feet wide by about 140 feet deep. In the front, there's was already 4 apartments or rooms here and here with a passageway like for a truck to go through, and then all the back was open. So what we did is remodeled the left side to make an apartment for our pastoral couple. The right side are children's rooms. It has a little kitchen behind those rooms, and then it opens up into a dirt floor, tin roof auditorium that we use right now. And I'll show you more pictures of that. But we consider this church the epicenter of church planting in northern Nicaragua. As a matter of fact, that is our kind of goal, is to be the epicenter of church planting. God has given Jennifer and I the goal of planting 20 churches in northern Nicaragua before we die. And so we have begun planting 2 others besides this one. So we're working with 3 church plants at the same time. We stay very, very busy. And I want to show you some of those works now. So you can see on the left our logo is the vision is 20 new churches in northern Nicaragua through Project Epicenter, which is that first church we planted. That will be the mother church of helping us plant churches all around the north. And here's the 2 places that we started in Villa Sandino and San Nicolas. Now, Villa Sandino is a neighborhood outside of town. It's the fastest growing neighborhood in the Esteli city, but it's about a 45-minute walk away. And we had people coming from there walking all the way to our church. One day this young man, one of the young men that I became friends with and was discipling, named Labine said, "Hey Max, would you want to come to my house and maybe plant a church there, or at least have a Bible study?" And he said, "This neighborhood's big and it's growing." So I went out and looked at it. I said, "Absolutely, let's go." And so 4 months after we launched the church in downtown, people from that church helped me to launch the church in Villa Sandino. So we went out to Villa Sandino, and still we do not have property. God has provided us the money to buy property now. So when I get back, that's one of my first things I want to do. But we still need to build a multi-purpose little building on there for them to have stuff on. But anyway, Villa Sandino, we have for the last really 3 years met in people's homes outside of their house and their yards or whatever. And that's a home you can see them meeting in. Now, San Nicolas is very recent, and I'll tell you a lot more about that in just a moment. But San Nicolas is an hour away. And it's a cool story how that 3rd church plant just started really in November of this past year. December was when we really decided, okay, this is where we're going to plant the 3rd church. So let's start showing you a little bit about them. The Villa Sandino, that's a typical service on Thursday nights when we have our services in Villa Sandino, and that's a typical place where we would have it. That's Marlene's house. It's made out of tin. She lives in that tin building over there on the right. We have to string an extension cord that you can see from the neighbors, borrow their power, and we bring that little light and hang it so that we have enough light to teach and to have service and stuff like that. Let's go to the next slide. So here we got Jennifer. She's teaching the children up there. Now she's turning a lot of her responsibility over to Luz, who is the pastor's wife pastor and pastor's wife in training. Osman, down here, you're going to see him a little bit later in my video in the service. Actually, Osman and Luz will talk to you in my video. But he does the leading the Bible study now. He's in training, so I'm giving him every opportunity he can. I've taught him how to preach. He got saved. I baptized him. And now I've discipled him, and he got called into the ministry. So did she. They got married. I married them September 25th of this last year is my first wedding in Spanish. And now we spend every day with them, training them to be the pastor of the Esteli Church. So he's doing that. This is Thursday night, the Bible studies. And what do? Let's look at the next picture. I'm taking a selfie. That's what I do now. That's my job. But I put that in there as kind of a little joke. But the truth is, as a missionary, a true church planting missionary, which I feel like we are, my job as a church planting missionary is to work myself out of a job. I want to, with your help, you guys support us. We go into an area, we plant a church, we build it up, we win people to Christ, we baptize them, we disciple them. God calls some into the ministry, and then we leave it in their hands and we go do it again. And so I just put that in there just kind of remind you that our job is to work ourselves out of a job, and that's why we've got 3 church plants going right now. And please pray for more workers that can become workers in those churches as well. So let's go to this next picture. This is the church plant now, our 3rd church plant that we're working with currently as well in San Nicolas. San Nicolas is way up in the mountains outside of Esteli. It's an hour away, and it's super high. It's about super high for Nicaragua is about 4,000 feet elevation, which means it's cold or cooler up there. It's still warm and tropical, but at night it can drop down to 50, which to me is freezing cold now because I live in 85 degrees every day, so 50 is really, really, really cold. And they grow coffee, they grow beans, they grow potatoes, and it's just a very, very rural, very horticultural type of a culture. And there's no real town up there. There's 5 villages, and one of them is called Gingahapa, and the other one's called La Puerta, and the other one's Gran Rodeo. And so they're little communities that live along this main mountain road that you can get access. So anyway, that's where we started and chosen why. I'll explain that in just a second. Go to this next slide. So Luz is being baptized on our 2nd anniversary. That's just over a year ago. That young lady in the tub there, do you see that? That's our baptistry. It's actually like a feed trough or a water trough for animals. But we found it at a hardware store and said, that'll be a good baptism. And so we fill it up, and she's being baptized a year ago. Now, Luz and Osman are now married, but at that time they were boyfriend and girlfriend. So I took them on a missions trip to another town in Nicaragua before they got married with other people too. And on that missions trip, God spoke to both their hearts, and they surrendered to full-time service, for full-time ministry. So we talked to them. They got married on September 25th of this last year, and now they are the pastor and pastor's wife in training. Well, you can see over here down below is Christian Moreno, who is Luz Moreno's dad. I hadn't met him or anything until just this last September. Here's what happened. When we bought the property, God's timing is perfect. We bought the property in August. We had 1 month to prepare their apartment because Luz and Osman needed a place to live as a married couple. So we started working. I hired a man that was a friend of mine to come and help me. He's in construction every day. He got COVID, and he couldn't come back. So Luz said, well, my dad does construction, and he lives in San Nicolas. Now, San Nicolas, when she said it, I knew where that was because it's Jennifer and my favorite place to go for Christmas. Just the day. We usually go on Christmas Eve. It's San Nicolas, which is St. Nicholas. It's cooler. It reminds us of fall at least, or it makes us feel more Christmassy, right? And we always take some toys with us, and we pass out along the road when we see little kids. We hand them, just little things. Maybe they think I'm Santa Claus. Maybe they think I'm San Nicolas with the white beard on. Or is it the belly? One of the two. But anyway, so there's a beautiful lookout. It's called a Mirador, and you go and you look, you can see 5 volcanoes off in the distance. You can see the town of San Nicolas down there. And we've always said the last 4 years, it would be so cool if God allowed us to plant a church in this little mountain community sometime. Well, her dad's from San Nicolas. And she said, my dad works, he'll come in every day, or he can stay in the church if you'll allow him. He'll spend the night during the week, and he'll work with you every day to finish our apartment. So I called him up. Now, Christian was not a Christian. She even warned me. She said, now, my dad is not a Christian. He does not want anything to do with church, or he doesn't want anything to do with religion. His wife, my mom, is very Catholic, but he's rejected Catholicism, and he doesn't like the Assembly of God and the Pentecostal churches the way they do it, and he just said he's not a religious guy. He's got a bad mouth. He's a bit of a jokester. I said, sounds just like my kind of guy. Let's hire him. So I hired him, and sure enough, Christian and I hit it off like that. He's the funniest guy. He taught me a lot of new terminology from construction. No, not that type of terminology. Although I did hear it a few times, and he would say, excuse me. No, but when I'm talking about in Spanish, or in every language, there's bubbles of language. Like right now, if I were to ask you to explain to me rocket science, you would probably struggle to find the words even in English to describe those things. Same thing in Spanish. So when you get into a construction bubble, there's a lot of words that I hadn't learned yet, So he taught me a lot of that because he was in construction. But we hit it off, man, and he wouldn't come to our services at first and everything. But just spending 3 weeks with him finishing that apartment, at the end, this is what he said, Max, would you want to come to my house and do a Bible study? I said, well, let me think about it. Absolutely. So 2 weeks later, we go to his house, have the very first Bible study. That's his home you see in the picture right here on the left, or on the right for you, right here. That's his home. That's not the first Bible study. I'll tell you about that moment. But the very first Bible study is just his family, about 8 people. We took about 6 people from Esteli with us. Osman played the guitar, we sang, and then I gave a short devotion, and Christian became a Christian. Christian accepted Jesus Christ right there at that Bible study. But not just him, but Luce's sister also accepted Christ that Bible study, and her niece, 12-year-old niece. So 3 people at the very first Bible study accepted Jesus. And that's when we said, you know what, maybe this is the place in San Nicolas that God would have us start. So we started talking to Christian, and he said, you're welcome to use my home, but there's a piece of property right down the street. Let me show it to you for sale. We go up the street, and it's about a 2-acre little farm, has a house on it already, has a chicken barn on it where we can raise about 100 to 150 chickens, and that would take care of the feeding up there, plus the church could sell it. Anyway, God has provided us the $25,000 just in this time we've been back to purchase that property. And now we're trying to raise more to build just a roof, basically, that 100 people could sit under and have services. But be praying for San Nicolas. This activity you see here on the right is the Christmas activity we had about a month after Christian got saved. He got excited. We said, we'll do a Christmas activity at your house. And you invite, on a Sunday afternoon, you invite people, your friends, your neighbors in these communities, and over 160 people showed up. And show the next slide. At that Christmas activity, 4 more people accepted Jesus Christ. Now that looks like 2 pictures over there on the right, but that's not. I'm actually standing on a wall because that's the only place that everyone could see me when I preached. So we were pretty blown away at the reaction of the community. Let me tell you something about that. There's only one church in that whole community, and it's a tiny Catholic church. There's not one Baptist church. There's not one evangelical church. And so by us planting a church there, we can reach a lot of people with the truth of the gospel. And so that's number 3. All right? Now, let's go to the next slide. This is a picture of our last activity, the kind of the leaders that went from Esteli. San Nicolas has a beautiful park, and in that park, we had to ask the mayor's office, can we have access to the covered area and everything? And we're going to do a service out there and invite all the people again. Well, again, over 100 people showed up. I had a guest speaker, Alvaro. He's the tallest one there on the right. He's our pastor in Leon, Nicaragua. He came for this special event, and he preached. Just had a great time. Well, in that service, we did food. Like I said, we do that every time. But before it all started, I got on the loudspeaker because we're in a public park, and I just said to everybody there, hey, we're from Santuario Esteli. We're going to have a service, and we're going to have music and preaching and food, and anybody here in the park is invited to come join us. We have plenty of chairs up here. So we brought all the chairs from our church in Esteli. And so some people from the park came and joined that activity, including one couple who sat through the whole thing. Now, let me just tell you real quick. You say, you have a goal of planting 20 churches in northern Nicaragua? Yes, but it's more than that. Jennifer and I have actually gotten the map out, and she actually drew it on the chalkboard in Esteli for everyone to see. We left it up for a couple of months. But we have Esteli as the epicenter. All the way around, within an hour to an hour and a half, there's 20 communities that we have identified that if God will open a door for us, we will gladly go. And we call it Spirit-led church planting. When people get word of what's going on and they say, would you like to have a Bible study in our home? We look at that as, hey, maybe that's the start of a church. So this couple came to this thing, and I found out through talking to them before the service, they were from La Trinidad, which is the Trinity. It's a city that's about 35 minutes down the Pan Am from us. And we pass through it all the time, and it was on our map. So they're sitting there, they listen to the service. After the service, they came up to me and said, hey, would you want to do this at our house in La Trinidad? So there's number 4, possibly. Lord willing, when I get back, we'll go there and investigate that a little bit more, and that may be number 4. So I just want you to know, your missions dollars are contributing to the success that you've seen this morning, and it's nothing to do with me. I'm just a normal guy. Listen, I knew nothing about this 10 years ago. I never knew I was going to go be a missionary. But if you say yes to God and you're willing to walk through the open doors and trust in Him, God can do amazing things with you in your life. And He's done it in Esteli, Villa Sandino, y San Nicolas. All right, that last slide here, or next to last, this is Osman and Luce. You're going to hear them on my video. My video here in just a moment when I speak in the service, I decided to do it completely different. I hardly talk at all. I just at the end invite you to come see us. But Osman and Luce, they actually will talk to you. You'll need to read. I've translated it for you. So those of you who can read, you should get something out of it. But Osman and Luce are our pastor and wife in training, and they're having service right now. I was just watching it back there, our live service before this started. We put it on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and we have hundreds of views every week, and our church downtown is growing. And so what we're asking you to do is to be praying for them. Let's go to the next slide. Pray for Osman and Luce as they lead the downtown church to growth while we're gone. And when we get back, it's not going to be the same. I'm going to let him continue to do what he's doing, and I'm just going to be the support. Today, I'm going to teach them 3 hours of seminary class online. Jennifer and I have been doing that, so we're training them. I'm doing New Testament survey with them for 3 hours this afternoon in the hotel room because we kind of got behind last week. I've been in a missions conference from last Wednesday to this past Wednesday, 2 straight. So anyway, I'm going to catch up with them today, but pray for them. They're doing an amazing job. I mentioned to you that we've raised we've raised our funds for Villa Sandino and San Nicolas to buy their properties. Now we're moving back to focusing on our main church there in Esteli because, as I mentioned, we just have a dirt floor. We just have tin roof. It's like a pole barn over dirt. The wall is not secure. Houses are all around. We've actually caught kids inside the church. It's a good thing Osman and Luce live there because they hear stuff and they're kind of act as security. But we need to, first of all, build a wall around our thing that goes up 2 floors because we want that wall to serve as the walls for a 2-story building one day. And so that's going to be around $25,000. So pray for that God will help us to continue to raise the funds to build that church out and start with the security wall that will serve as walls around the church, and then $75,000 for the finish out of that downtown church. It's more expensive to build in town. You have to get the permits and all of that. It's kind of like here, you can't just go willy-nilly with it like you can in San Nicolas or Villa Sandino. So the cost of construction is a little higher, but we also want it to be a nicer building because this is the epicenter. All of those churches will be served by this church. They'll be able to come back to Esteli, get their copies made, pick up VBS materials, be trained in a little institute. So it's got to be able to service quite a few church plants in the future. So anyway, those are our big 3 that you keep praying for us, okay? All right. I think I've talked enough, and let me hear from you. If there are any questions, I think we have a couple of minutes maybe. Anybody have a question?
Yeah, I think your banner said church with a message for all.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
that's right. Una iglesia con un mensaje para todos. So it's a church with a message for everyone.
So do you present yourselves as a Baptist denomination?
Absolutely.
Or you just say we're Bible-based and leave it at that?
No, we do. We're Santuario Familiar Bautista Esteli, which is Sanctuary Family Baptist Church, or Family Sanctuary Baptist Church is how it would translate. So yeah, Baptist, and the reason that we are pretty much, we want to be upfront with that is because we get lumped in with what Nicaraguans say are evangelicals. evangelicas, or iglesias evangelica. Well, that's not really doing service to the good doctrine of the Bible, because there are some that are Christian, I guess. Some of them, it's kind of hard to tell by their works, but they have a very, very strange doctrine that they teach. A lot of prosperity gospel in a country where people don't even make $1 a day. They preach prosperity. A lot of rule by guilt. A lot of their pastors have not been trained well in the Bible, so it's just whatever they want to preach about. And so we want to make that distinction. And when they hear Baptist, they tend to ask more questions. Well, what do you teach? And then that's when we can really explain that, we're not a works-based religion. It's all about grace. God loves you. He's not here to, like Jesus said, I've not come to condemn the world, but to save it. And so we're able to really explain. And so, we present it as Baptist. And not Southern Baptist. They have a different idea of that, too. We're Independent Baptist. All right. What else? Anyone else?
I have one more question.
Okay, great. That's fine. That's fine.
These people know on the food issue with kids and families, rotating or how they do it, is it because food's not available, or is it just too expensive?
It's expensive for them. Just a lack of not supply, but of money to buy it. Places where it happens most in around Esteli are out in the outskirts. There are people that live out in the country, in the sticks, and a lot of them will farm, but their farming is only for that temporada, that season, and so during the off seasons they just struggle. And then some just don't have jobs. Some families, the dad has left and the mother's there raising kids and can't work. And so even if she works, she makes very, very, very little. She might make tortillas, for instance, and they get like a half a penny for each tortilla that they make. And she'll sell 300 of them. Well, you can figure out that's not very much money. That's about $1, right? So it just comes down to supply. They can't fill the supply for their family. Yeah. So, and it has a lot to do with the culture and the government, honestly. It's very, 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 very socialistic. And so when you have that happen, you always see the result. You know who's rich and you know there's no middle class. You're either in the government, own your own business, or you're poor. Yeah. Anybody else real quick? One last? Joe?
How is the government there, your interaction with the government? Is there any government interference?
No, not to being a missionary or doing gospel presentation. It's very open that way. But as I was just mentioning, we do find some difficulties from time to time. Not that we can't do or say anything politically, because we're just visitors there. It's against the law for us to take positions. But there has been some upswellings and things that we've gotten involved in 2018 that we didn't get involved in. It's just we had to leave the country for 2 months because there was a mini revolution and we got tear gas in our home and it was just a big riot mess and all that. So we left for 2 months and then got back, and now things have calmed down. But there's always that, what you imagine about Latin America or Latin country, kind of the upset, that type of, we experience that every day. Yeah. You had one? Right.
Yeah, if somebody wanted to come alongside and help with the funding of the $75,000, is there a process to do that? Because, our church helps support you, but if there's a specific way that to get to designate funds for that.
Yeah, it would be through your church, and it would be, you guys send our mission support every month through the Baptist Bible Fellowship International. And so whatever you decided to give to that, you do the same way, just designate it and say this is to the Kennedys in Nicaragua building. Yeah, or building project or special project. And what they do is that then goes into a hold, into an account that stays there until we're ready to make those, and then they wire us the money. That's the BBFI Missions Office is amazing. So they handle all of our finances. We have to report to them quarterly every penny that we spend. There's personal funds that we live on, but then all the rest. I could raise, honestly, I'm just going to say something, and it's going to sound absolutely ridiculous to you, but it's true. I'm done. I don't need any more personal support. It's limited anyway. It's just designated what I can live on, me and Jennifer together. But as much as I can raise beyond that will go to ministry. So if I could raise $100,000 a month for ministry, I could spend it on ministry. There's that much to be done right now, including all the other 14 churches that we're part of and helping. So I don't know if that answers your question, but basically you do it the same way you do our support. You would just designate it when you send it in to the Kennedys to Nicaragua building. All right, I think we're done. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this time we've had to just share the amazing things you've been doing in Nicaragua. We praise you for it. Now bless the rest of our time here today. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, guys.